After interviewing tens of thousands of people about their work, everyone from housekeepers to salespeople to teachers to generals, all different kinds of people, all good at their job, the biggest, most enduring discovery that I've come to, at least, and there's a lot of different discoveries, but the most enduring discovery is that work, the experience of working can be great. It can thrill you, and it can challenge you, and it can restore you, it can make you feel powerful, strong. Not every day, right? There's days when you come in and it's like everyone's just taken an I want to annoy Marcus pill, or days when you come in it's just boring. But there are other moments at work, aren't there? There are other moments where you get to feel like you're really using your strengths, where you get in that zone where the right decisions just come so easily to you. Or when you feel creative without really trying, and you just got one idea after another. Or you feel challenged in just the way that you like to be challenged. Or moments when you dive into something and you get so involved in it, so focused on it, that when you're done with it, you're not tired. In fact, you're kind of fulfilled, and you almost wish that the activity that you were doing, well, your whole job was that activity. Moments like that, work can be great just because it can show you how great you can be. And your company knows this. That's why they're forever talking about our people are our greatest asset. They know that if you, and everybody else, but if you can find a role in which you can play to your strengths most of the time, then everybody wins. You win because you feel more productive, more engaged. Your teammates win because they feel the difference. Your customers feel the difference. The company sees the difference. Everybody wins. So wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great if you got to play to your strengths most of the time? If you could find a role where you play to your strengths for most of your working day. How cool would that be? Well, it'd be cool, but the research shows that actually very few of us manage to get to that place. In fact, if you ask this exact question, if you ask, what percentage of your typical workday do you spend playing to your strengths? If you actually ask people that question, what you get back is that less than 2 out of 10 of us actually get to play to our strengths at work. I'm not an idealist. I don't know about you, but I didn't expect that number to be 80%. I didn't expect 8 out of 10 people to say, yeah, we skip to work. We play to our strengths most of the time. There's a reason they call it work, right? But 2 out of 10, actually less than 2 out of 10, it's actually 17%. That just seemed really low to me. And I suppose, well, for me anyway, that begs a question. And that question is, are you one of the 2 out of 10? And if you aren't, how do you get to be? Now, it wasn't always this way, was it? It wasn't always this way. When you were a kid, if you think back to when you were a kid, didn't you on some level kind of know instinctively what got you out of bed every day? You knew what classes you wanted to go to, or what teachers you wanted to hang out with, or what kids you wanted to go play with. You just knew instinctively what your strengths were, what strengthened you, and you kind of felt, maybe you couldn't articulate it, but you kind of felt that the world was going to wait for you, and one day you were going to pop out and your unique mark was going to be made on the world. And then sometime between then and now, some part of that childish hopefulness evaporates, doesn't it? It withers away, and we get to work and we're not really sure what our mark is anymore. Now, there's all kinds of reasons why that happens, why I think we lose touch with what our strengths are and what our contribution should be. We gotta fit in, we gotta do what our parents want us to do, we gotta get a job, we gotta pay the bills. And then you get the job, and then you got to do what your boss wants, and then here's your job description, and we got to do what the company wants. So, yeah, maybe some of those things are to blame for getting you off your strengths path. But I think if you look closely, you might find that what's holding you back from really playing to your strengths isn't this other stuff, your boss, your company, your job description. Maybe what's holding you back from playing to your strengths is what you believe. Maybe you've become trapped by a very few myths that you've been told are true, and they're not. If you could explode those myths, and if you could replace them with what's true and really act on it, then maybe you could take back some of the control of your work. And maybe you could spend more time, deliberately, each week, spend more time playing to your strengths. Here's one of those myths, that as you grow, you change. God, we've all heard that one, right? As you grow, you're supposed to put away your childish traits. You're supposed to acquire more skills and acquire more experiences and become more balanced, more well-rounded. You're supposed to become an adult. But the problem is it isn't true. The truth is, as you grow, you don't change your personality. As you grow, you become more and more and more of who you already are. My son, Jackson, Jack's 4.5 years old, and already I know some stuff about him. I can see that Jack physically hates to lose. Not in a I prefer winning to losing kind of way that all kids have, but in a physical hatred of losing. If he sees his favorite football team on TV losing, he he can't stay in the room. He's got to run out. Or he's got to bury his head in the cushions and pretend he can't see it, so that he can't see it. I mean, the kid just hates to lose. I've also seen, and this is odd, but because I don't have any of this, he has a craving for order. This is the kid that won't close the fridge door unless the ketchup has been turned so the label's facing out. Or who panics when we're on the plane and I lean forward to close the blind of the window that just might, partially belong to the seat in front of me. Oh, don't do that, Dad, that's his. Well, odd though that is, those personality traits in a 4.5-year-old, and kind of funny, the bottom line for Jack is they ain't going to change. He's going to have that same craving to win at 44 as he does at 4. And at 84, when he sees his grandkids with their playthings littered all over the playroom floor, his need for structure is still going to fire off. So the point of life for Jack isn't to replace that. The point is to channel it. His dreams may change, his circumstances may change, his achievements may change. But the core of him, the strongest and most dominant parts of his personality, those are going to stay the same. Those are going to stay constant. And so will yours. And that's okay. Now, this doesn't mean he can't grow and you can't grow and I can't grow. It doesn't mean that we can't learn new skills. We can. But this actually points to the second myth that might be holding you back. The myth that you're going to grow the most, you're going to learn the most in the areas where you're weakest. That one sounds odd, but if you think about it, it was ingrained in you really early, wasn't it? Because when you were a kid and you were in class or you were in school and you found out you were good at maths but not very good at English, you didn't get more maths, did you? You got more English. You got remedial English. And your parents were in on this game. They were part of the ingraining process. The Gallup organization once asked this question. Your child comes home with the following grades. English A, Social Studies A, Biology C, Algebra F. Which grade deserves the most attention from you? The question didn't say, if you pick one of the grades, you've got to ignore all the others. It just said, hey, look, here are the grades, and you've only got one thing to invest in your child, your time. Which grade deserves the most attention, the most time from you? 77% of parents would focus on the F. Now, the point here isn't that you should ignore the F any more than you should ignore your own weaknesses. You can't ignore weaknesses. The point is simply, and the truth, if you like, the truth that should replace the myth is that you're going to grow the most, you're going to develop the most in the areas where you already know the most. You grow the most in your areas of strength. In your areas of weakness, yeah, you can learn, but what learnings you gain are achieved with great effort and difficulty, and you don't get very much bang for your buck. I mean, me, growing up, I had a weakness for confrontation. I just wasn't very good at confronting people. I can remember, when I had to try and persuade my dad that I wanted to do something that he wouldn't let me do, I would prepare, I would think about the arguments I wanted to make or the examples that I'd pick. And I even actually rehearsed the actual words I would use. I would be totally prepared. But somehow, in the heat of the moment, in the heat of the confrontation, my brain would shut my mouth down. Just couldn't find the words. They'd get stuck in the guzzard or gizzard or whatever this part of the neck is. It's stuck right here. I'd choke every time. Now, going into the workplace, people figured this out about me and they'd counsel me. They'd sort of take me under their wing and say, here's a nice assertiveness training course. Go take that. Or they'd give me little tips and hints, Some of which, by the way, quite good. Always look people directly in the eye if you want to confront them. Or as they raise their voice, lower yours. All good stuff, and I worked at it, and I got better. I got better. I went from terrible to really bad. A much better use of my time would have been to take all that training, effort, and energy and stuff and put it into my strengths. Because if you want to grow, like me, you're going to have to take all your creativity, all your effort, all of your push and your drive, and invest it in those areas where you have some natural strength. There, you're going to see giant leaps of learning. So do that. Manage around the weaknesses. And I know, I mean, you hear that and you go, well, yeah, that'd be great. That'd be nice. Awesome. But I actually don't work alone, Marcus. I actually work in a team. I work in a place where people expect all kinds of different things of me. I can't selfishly just focus on my strengths. The team, the people I work with, they need more from me. The team needs me to chip in and do whatever it takes to help the team. Isn't that actually the right, the responsible thing to do? Put your strengths second to the needs of the team? Well, in a word, no. No, that's actually the third myth that might be holding you back from living a life that plays to your strengths. The myth that what the team needs from you is to put aside your strengths and do whatever it takes to help the team win. The truth is that what the team needs from you is not to chip in. It needs you to find out what your strengths are and volunteer those most of the time. Because if you look at the best teams, they're not filled with perfectly well-rounded people. The team is well-rounded precisely because each of the players isn't. And I know, just like you do, conventional wisdom's been banging on for years about how the fact that you've got to put yourself aside for the benefit of the team. I mean, conventional wisdom resides in cliches, doesn't it? Like there's no I in team. But as Michael Jordan once said, there is in win. I mean, if you want to be part of a really strong, powerful, rocking team, then you're not chipping in, are you? You're figuring out what your strengths are, and you're volunteering that most of the time. And hopefully, everybody else on the team is doing the same. So if you want to be part of a great team, do that a lot. Figure out what the best is that you've got to bring, and then bring it often. Then you'll win. You know, if you want to become one of the 2 out of 10, then above everything else, try and remember this. When it comes to how you spend your time at work, you may have a lot more control than you think. I mean, sure, there's only 2 out of 10 people that get to play to their strengths most of the time, but maybe the only thing that's stopping you from joining them is what you believe. To become one of the 2 out of 10 is not about changing jobs or changing bosses or changing companies. It's about changing what you believe. If you can take those 3 myths that may well be holding you back and explode them and put in their place those 3 truths, I mean, really understand what those 3 truths are, that if you grow, as you grow, you don't become somebody else, you become more and more and more of who you already are, that you're going to grow and develop the most in your areas of greatest strength, and that what your team needs of you most of all is for you to bring those strengths deliberately. I mean, if you can really put those into practice, then you can start taking control of how you spend your time at work. And don't expect dramatic change right out of the gate, because I don't. I mean, you're going to come into work tomorrow, it's going to be the same people, and it's going to be the same company, and it's going to be the same needs, same expectations. But so what? Don't get discouraged. Start anyway. Start taking control of how you spend some of your time at work. Start putting some of your minutes around your strengths rather than around your weaknesses. Don't wait for that perfect job or that perfect company or that perfect boss, because these things may never come. Start today. Start figuring out how you can focus more of your minutes on your strengths this week than you did last week. Start taking control today. Change how some of those minutes are spent at work. Start playing to your strengths. Notice this? Isn't it funny how when you ask people to describe their weaknesses, they always manage to turn it around and make it sound like a strength. You know, the person says, my weakness is that I care too much. Or the girl who says, my weakness is that I'm just too much of a perfectionist. It is kind of funny how we do that, but I suppose it's understandable because we want to make ourselves look as good as we can to everybody else, right? What's much less easy to understand, though, is that when you ask people to describe their strengths, I mean, the very things that would make them look really good to everybody else, they wind up being so vague, so vanilla, so bland in describing their strengths. I mean, after a lifetime of interviewing people about their strengths, do you want to know the most common answer? Like, if you were to bet money on what answer will I hear when I ask that person, this is the answer you'd make your money on. I like dealing with people. Yes, I do. People. No mention of which people, whether it's strangers or friends or colleagues or guests, or just people. I like dealing with people. If you're going to get to be one of the 2 out of 10 that plays to their strengths most of the time, that takes control of their day, their hours, their minutes at work, then you got to become good. You got to get really good. You got to get very detailed, very specific at describing your own strengths. I mean, I like dealing with people. What is that? Which people? What are you doing with the people? Are you selling to them? Are you serving them? Are you taking care of them? Are you responding to their needs? If you like selling to them, are you selling to a lot of different people during the course of a day? Do you really like getting to know people who are strangers, winning them over, getting them to like you, then selling to them, then moving on like a retail environment? Or do you like building a really long-term, established, authentic relationship with someone and only then trying to persuade them to buy what you have to sell? Well, boy, those are 2 really different things. Or maybe you don't even like closing at all. You don't want to get a close. You just want to build influence. Well, which one of those applies to you? Or does neither apply to you? But if you're going to get to be one of the 2 out of 10, you've got to get to that level of detail, that level of granularity in describing your strengths. The good news is, I mean, daunting though that sounds, the good news is that isn't actually as hard as it seems. You don't need a psychologist or a manager or a teacher or an HR department even to tell you what your strengths are. You can do this because your strengths have certain signs to them, certain sort of telltale signs, characteristics. And if you look back at your week, last week at work, and you try and look for those signs, you'll be able to filter them out and I think be able to see from those signs what your true, most dominant, most powerful strengths are. Here's the first sign. And it's an obvious one, but pay attention to it. Your strengths have a yearning quality to them. They're like a force inside you trying to get out. So watch to see which activities last week did you look forward to doing? Which activities did you find yourself volunteering for? Now, there may not be that many of them because you did a lot of stuff last week, but see whether you can pull the curtain aside a wee bit and look for which were those activities you actually look forward to doing. Here's a second sign. Your strengths are those things you're naturally inquisitive about, right? When you start doing an activity that's around a strength of yours, you don't struggle to concentrate, do you? Your mind doesn't wander. You're like in the moment. You're in the zone. You're focused. You're concentrated. Time just sort of zips by and you look up and like a whole hour's gone by. Okay, what were those activities last week? Were there any activities that you stay inquisitive around, that you keep learning around, that you keep researching around? Those are all great signs of a strength. And then last, your strengths have this restorative quality to them, don't they? When you're done with them, you may be physically tired, but you're not psychologically drained. You're not empty. You're not depleted. You're actually uplifted. You're sustained. They fulfill you. That's actually why you want to do them again, because you want that feeling again. Okay, look for those activities. Were there any activities last week that left you feeling kind of magnificent? What were they? Look back for those 3 clues. Which activities did you look forward to? Which activities did you stay inquisitive around and in the moment? And which activities left you feeling strong and magnificent? Do you see anything? Really, try it. Just look back. Do you see anything emerging? Any activities, any patterns there last week where you can see some of those signs? When I do that, three things come to mind for me. Three strengths sort of come to the fore. First, I interviewed a really good housekeeping supervisor. She's got 13 housekeepers she manages. She's brilliant at it. I love doing that, interviewing anybody who's really good at their job about why they're good. Second, I gave a presentation when I'd prepared. I'm not good and I don't like giving presentations when I haven't. I need to know my stuff, get prepared. And if I've done that, then I kind of like giving a presentation. And then third, I read an article, took notes on an article about the New Zealand rugby team, which, would you believe, is, and always has been, the best rugby team in the world. Which is kind of weird, because there's only 3 million people on those islands. There's more sheep than New Zealanders. And yet somehow they always wind up beating teams from countries, 10 times their size. Love doing that, interviewing and studying and reading up on organizational excellence, particularly mysterious organizational excellence like that. Picking out activities like that, for me, is really important work, because those three activities, interviewing someone who's excellent at their job, giving a presentation when I'm prepared, and researching organizational success, those three things are strengths of mine. Now, in saying that, I'm not saying I'm good at them. I mean, I'm not bad at them, but I'm not great at them. I mean, with each of them, I have huge room to grow, huge improvement that's got to be made in each one of those. All I'm saying is those three activities, those three very specific activities, make me feel strong. And that's the best definition of a strength, for you as well as for me, for everybody. A strength is an activity that makes you feel strong. I mean, I know that's going to sound odd to you because you've been raised, like I've been raised, to believe that your strengths are things you're good at, your weaknesses are things you're bad at. And it's not like that definition's wrong, it's just not enough. A strength isn't just what you're good at. It's like the definition is incomplete, and it leaves out all the stuff that you really want to know about, all the really interesting stuff. You don't want to know what you're good at or what you're bad at. That's an outcome. It's happened. It's over. It's the past. You don't want to know about the past. You want to know about the future, don't you? I mean, you've got questions about the future. You want to know which strengths can you turn to when you've had a bad day so that they can build you back up. You want to know which strengths you can count on to really deliver for you regardless of the situation or the circumstances. You want to know which strengths you're going to get better and better and better at as you invest more training and time in them. You want to know which strengths you're going to be most creative in, have the better ideas in. Basically, you want to know which strengths are going to sustain you and fulfill you as you march on through life. And that old definition of a strength as stuff you're good at is just a really bad guide to those questions about the future. That definition tells you that in order to know how to plan your future and focus your future, you should look to those activities you're good at. But can that be true? I mean, don't you have some activities you're good at, but which leave you empty or cold? Or that even actually deplete you? Like you may be really good at organizing stuff, just brilliant at arranging everything, getting all perfectly in its place, but it leaves you empty. After 2 days of arranging and organizing, you feel this close to bursting into tears. Well, if you have some activity like that, should I tell you that organizing is your future? Organizing stuff is what you should build your career around? Of course I wouldn't. No, the best definition of a strength is an activity that leaves you feeling strong. Because if you think about it, I don't know what your goals are, I don't know what your dreams are, but surely one of the objectives of your life is to make the biggest contribution for the longest period of time. Well, if you're going to do that, whatever field you've chosen, if you're going to do that, you've got to base that contribution on activities themselves that strengthen you. Whatever you're doing at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning or 2 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon, whatever that is has got to strengthen you. The activity itself has got to do that. I don't care how cool your company is that you've joined, or how sexy your job title is, or how noble your sense of mission is. If the activity itself doesn't strengthen you, you've got a problem. We're gonna see you burn out way before we see the best of you. Now you flip that around. If you deliberately try and install in your working week activities that strengthen you, all kinds of good things happen for you. You'll find that you'll bounce back more quickly. You'll be more resilient when things set you back. You'll find you'll be able to stay focused longer. You'll find you'll be more creative. You'll find you'll set higher goals. And of course, the really I mean, the really relevant thing, you'll wind up achieving those goals more often. Why? Get your head around this. Because you will get good at things you practice. But you don't practice all activities uniformly, do you? You get drawn into some activities and repelled by others. And those you get drawn into, you practice more, and you practice more, and you get better and better at them. So you need to pay really close attention to your appetites, because your appetites, those activities you're drawn to that fulfill you, those appetites drive your abilities. You need to pay attention to how you feel while you're doing something, because how you feel while you're doing something will determine how good you get at that thing. And what about those activities that you're drawn to, but you just don't seem to get any better at? We've all got those, don't we? Activities that you have a lot of appetite for and seemingly no ability. Well, we have a word for those activities, don't we? We have a word for all appetite, no ability kind of activities. We call them hobbies. And they stay hobbies because no one's paying us to do them. I mean, I can have the luxury of still going around and hacking away with my golf swing, or the luxury of messing with my forehand, or singing gloriously in the shower, and I don't have to worry that I have really no ability for them, because no one's paying me to do them. But it's amazing how quickly, when we go back into the real world, back into the world of work and wages and accountability and performance, it's amazing how quickly we dismiss that as a luxury. It's amazing how back in the real world, very few people maintain a strong appetite for an activity that they manifestly have no ability for. But you know the really brilliant news about defining a strength as an activity that makes you feel strong? Is that the person who's best qualified to identify your strengths, really the only person qualified to identify your strengths, is you. With the old definition, an activity you're good at, well, really the least qualified person to identify your strengths is you. Because you'd either be too hard on yourself or too generous with yourself, depending on how fragile your ego was. So right from a very early age, you were taught to look to somebody else, somebody outside of you, to confirm or deny what your strengths were. At school, you looked to your teachers, didn't you? At home, you looked to your parents. At work, you were taught to look to your manager and your HR department and that child of theirs, the performance appraisal. But with this new definition of a strength as an activity that makes you feel strong, you don't have to look to anyone else. You know better than anyone else does which activities you're drawn to and which repel you. You know which activities fascinate you and which bore you. You know which activities fulfill you and which leave you feeling cold. You know better than anyone else does if you feel fulfilled and excited meeting new people and winning them over.